Zach Wheeler is a Philadelphia Philly. Steven Matz is a St. Louis Cardinal. And Noah Syndergaard is a Los Angeles Angel. So is this the perfect time for a Matt Harvey reunion, folks? On today's episode of Locked On Mets, I'm going to talk about why it would be a lot of fun if the Mets sign Matt Harvey to a minor league contract this offseason.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. We're listening to Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Locked On Mets is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Now, on today's show, I want to talk about Matt Harvey because, hey, we're in the middle of a lockout. There's no news going on right now. Let's reminisce a bit. Let's go back in the time machine, talk about the Dark Knight. It's just a fun podcast for a Wednesday, folks. I'm going to talk about Matt Harvey and why he's going to have to sign a minor league contract in the first segment of today's show, because if you look at his numbers this past season with the Orioles, they were not great. Then in the second segment, I'll dive into what his role would be with the 2022 Mets, essentially a spot starter on a minor league deal. Then in the last segment, we'll get a little more serious as I want to compare Matt Harvey's career to a career of one of his former teammates, Colin McHugh, and maybe even address why Colin McHugh is actually the former Met they should be targeting to sign this offseason. Before we get to any of that, though, I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing about the Mets at justbaseball.com. All right, so let's start things off today discussing Matt Harvey's season. And the best way to do that, if you're watching on YouTube, is to check out the Baseball Savant page. If you're listening on the podcast feed, I'll explain what the viewers are seeing right now. And they're seeing a lot of blue bubbles on Matt Harvey's Baseball Savant page, which tells you the way he performed across the league, how he compares to other pitchers. You look at the percentiles here, not great. The only stat that he figured pretty well in was walk percentage at 78%. But you look at his whip of 1.54 and you realize that's because he was just getting hit really hard. Whiff percentage in the fourth percentile, which means that no one was getting fooled by Matt Harvey this year. You look at his strikeout percentage, 6th percentile, expected batting average, 3rd percentile, expected ERA, 11th percentile, average exit velocity, 33rd percentile, hard hit percentage, 30th percentile. None of these things are good. I mean, his curveball spin in the 57th percentile is one decent number he has here. His fastball velocity in the 49th percentile, about average, but yeah, a bad year for Matt Harvey. You look at the stats, obviously they aren't pretty. I don't really factor in win-loss record too much anymore, but he lost 14 games, won 6, had a 6.27 ERA, 28 starts, and 127 2/3 innings pitched. In all those innings, only had 95 strikeouts. So all of that is to say, Matt Harvey is not a good pitcher anymore. He has his moments. I know he came out of the All-Star break in July and had like 4 good starts in a row right before the trade deadline. The Orioles thought maybe they could trade him because that ERA was in the 2.5 range. And then, the wheels fell off again. And I feel bad to harp on Matt Harvey's career because it has just not gone well at all ever since he really gave his arm for the 2015 New York Mets. And it's a story I've told on this podcast before, but hey, those of you who might be new to the show, you might not have heard it. So I'll tell it again. 2015, obviously Mets are in a big playoff push at the time. I was, I think, still 19 years old. Maybe I had turned 20 at that point. And we were watching the New York Mets play the Miami Marlins as I'm driving down the turnpike with my buddy. Tells me that Matt Harvey is shutting himself down for the season. Scott Boras and Matt Harvey decided that he was not going to pitch anymore. Get to the game. I'm in the outfield. Harvey's out there shagging flies. I may or may not have been wearing this exact shirt that you're looking at right now, which If you look at the back, is a Matt Harvey jersey. Um, and wearing my Matt Harvey jersey, I might have called his name. He might have looked up at me, and I might have, given him a certain middle finger. I'm a fan. What do you want from me? He was shutting down the season at the first time I'd say the Mets competitive in all these years. Matt Harvey, I'm not saying I changed his decision, but maybe the fan outrage certainly impacted him. And then a couple days later, they retract. Matt Harvey is going to pitch out the season. He's amazing down the stretch. I've said it before. I'll say it again. That game 5 performance against the Royals, ignore that 9th inning, those first 8 innings, the best performance I've ever seen in my lifetime for a Met in a big game. Just an unbelievable pitching performance. Everyone was calling for him to come back out. At the time, you thought, all right, Harvey's going to finish this. They would have gone to Juris Familia. Who knows? Maybe that World Series ends up different. But Matt Harvey, I think for some Mets fans, is a toxic player you never want to see in a Mets uniform again. And for others like myself who just like the excitement, like the buzz that would come with it, enjoyed watching him come back to Citi Field this year with a decent ERA and having that excitement for that start. And then the Mets really kind of threw off his whole season, teed off on him, and then things went downhill. I just like that buzz with Matt Harvey. And the reason why I'm talking about potentially signing him to a minor league contract is because, for one, it costs you nothing. You bring him in, he makes some starts in spring training. That's fun. He goes out to Syracuse. If you're a Mets fan watching Syracuse Mets games, who would you rather watch on a given Wednesday night? Matt Harvey or Jared Eichhoff? To me, the answer's pretty simple. It's Matt Harvey. And then when you get that rare occasion, maybe Matt Harvey would return to the Citi Field Mound, and that could be a spectacle. That's what I want to talk about more in just a minute. What would it look like if Matt Harvey was in a Mets uniform next year? This holiday season, grab the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar or even better than a candy bar, and that is Built Bar, which is filled with so much holiday goodness, rich with decadent flavor, covered in chocolate, but amazingly low in calories, sugar, net carbs, and fat, and high in protein. You get the best of both worlds, delicious and healthy. So many flavors to choose from. It'll be hard to pick whether it's the raspberry bar, mint brownie, cherry, double chocolate, my personal favorite cookies and cream, or peanut butter brownie. Built Bar gives you that extra fuel you need to bust down those mall doors and battle all the holiday shoppers. Or if you're just standing in an endless shopping line, Built Bar can give you that extra something that you need to keep you going. So throw one in your purse or jacket pocket. You never know when you're going to need it. And if you like some marshmallowy treats around the holidays, you need to get your hands on Built Bar Puffs, which are light, fluffy, and marshmallowy through and through. Different flavors, all covered in chocolate. They taste so good, you won't believe they're filled with protein. If you want to try Built Bar today, go to built.com, use the promo code LOCK15. You'll get 15% off your next order. Again, that's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, Mets fans, I'm going to give you the inside track on the absolute best fantasy baseball platform in the industry, and that is Fantrax. Fantrax is the most customizable fantasy experience you will find for your dynasty, keeper, redraft, and best ball leagues. Create or join a fantasy baseball commissioner league, invite your friends, and dominate your draft this season. It's also the top dynasty fantasy baseball where you can go deep with the ultimate keeper and dynasty leagues, create a simple redraft league, or even a customizable best ball league with up to 2,000 teams. Coming from another service, Fantrax can import any of your current leagues and customize if needed. Among the most trusted names in fantasy sports since 2008, Fantrax invites you to sign up today for free. And if you do, you'll be entered to win an official MLB signed Fernando Tatis Jr. baseball simply by going to fantrax.com/lockedon and using the promo code Tatis when you sign up to be eligible to win. Again, that is fantrax.com/lockedon, and the promo code is Tatis to enter for a chance to win a signed baseball by one of the best sluggers in the game. Fantrax, the home of fantasy sports. Play ball. So I know that there's a segment of Mets fans that want nothing to do with Matt Harvey next season, that think that this would be a disaster to bring him in. But all I'm talking about is a minor league contract with an invite to spring training. You could say he's competing for the fifth starter job, but we know he's not going to get it if the Mets do what we expect them to do, which is probably add another starter. You still got Tyler McGill, David Peterson, Jordan Yamamoto, Trevor Williams, even on the roster. He would be so far down the pecking order, you probably wouldn't even see Matt Harvey next season. And honestly, that's why he probably doesn't sign. He's probably going to look for the next Orioles to go to, or the Angels from a couple years ago, where he signs deals with those teams, a minor league deal with the Orioles last offseason, knowing that he could get a lot of starts in their rotation. And honestly, he got really good reviews from the coaching staff there for his character. It sounds like he might just end up back in Baltimore. But again, middle of a lockout, let's dream a little bit about what it could look like. And if you look at the past, 6, 7 seasons, there's always a guy who's going to get 4 spot starts and is probably not going to be too good. Last year, it was Jared Eichhoff. Made 4 starts, 8.69 ERA. 2019, Walker Lockett made 4 starts, 8.34 ERA. 2018, different scenario, but when it came to that team, when you're looking over the numbers, the guy who made 4 starts on the team just happened to be Matt Harvey. Now, he started the year in the rotation, got moved to the bullpen, then got traded to the Reds. We all know how that story played out, but hey, that year, Matt Harvey was the starter on the 2018 Mets that had a 7 ERA. Can he do that again a couple of years later? Why not? Different circumstances, return of the Dark Knight. Like I said, it would be a lot of fun. But to keep going through Mets history, 2017, you have Tommy Milone, 5 starts, 8.56 ERA. 2016, Rafael Montero, 3 starts, 8.05 ERA. And then 2015, Dylan G was the closest example I could find, 7 starts, 5.90 ERA. 2014 was the last year where the Mets didn't have any spot starters that only made like 3 or more starts. Everyone had made either double-digit starts. There was a lot of guys that were swingmen going in the bullpen and in the rotation. There wasn't really that spot starter that was just coming up for a random start on a Tuesday and would be down on Wednesday. So that is what we're talking about here. I'm not talking about Matt Harvey as the 5th starter. I'm not talking about Matt Harvey in real contention when it comes to spring training. I'm saying if Matt Harvey is just sitting out there waiting for a call at the end of the offseason and he wants to go somewhere and sign a minor league deal and try to come back, the New York Mets would just be fun. It's not going to happen, but it would be fun if it did. The return of the Dark Knight would be fun. I'm sorry. Okay. And I could just imagine that spring training and how that building would be raucous with a Matt Harvey on the mound, because I saw Tim Tebow at bats in that building. And when you are, out there and it's 2:30 and it's 95 degrees in South Florida, you're sweating bullets. All of a sudden, through the sea of number 97s and number 88s and all these random jerseys, out came Tim Tebow on deck with his hulking presence, and you noticed. That's what I'm talking about, Matt Harvey. Just some entertainment to get you through spring training, and then at some point when it is May 23rd and 2 starters are on the IL, or you have a late scratch and you're coming off a road trip and you need an arm, Matt Harvey hops on that bus from Syracuse to Queens and gets on that Citi Field mound, and it would be electric. And then he might give up 5 runs. But who cares? Who cares? I'd rather have Matt Harvey than Jared Eichhoff. Is that a hot take? Like, seriously, is that really a hot take? That I would rather see Matt Harvey pitching in a Mets uniform next year than Jared Eichhoff or whatever the equivalent is. The Ariel Jurados of the world, the Tommy Malones of the world, Wilmer Fonts of the world. Although he was actually kind of good. Anyway, that is my whole theory, or my whole pitch, I guess I should say, for why I'd like to see Steve Cohen bring Matt Harvey back. Because you know what the other thing is? As I mentioned in the cold open on YouTube, Noah Syndergaard's gone. Steven Matz is gone. Zach Wheeler's gone. Jacob deGrom's the only one left. Let's see some pictures of Jake and Matt Harvey in Mets uniforms in spring training. That would be fun too. But what we're going to talk about next, though, is an actual former Met Harvey was an actual former Met who's still good in Colin McHugh. Compare his career to Matt Harvey's, because that's a really interesting comp, and what McHugh just did this past season with the Rays and why he'd be a really nice fit in the Mets bullpen. BetOnline has you covered all season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as the football season continues to march towards the playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to their new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit just by using the promo code LOCKEDON. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, so earlier in the show today, I pulled up Matt Harvey's Baseball Savant page to show you how he had a really bad year in 2021. We'll pull that up again. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see a lot of blue bubbles. That's telling you that Matt Harvey, not a great pitcher. Now let's look at Colin McHugh. Look at all those red bubbles. This guy, one of the most dominant pitchers in baseball this year. You look at the ERA 1.55. You look at the whip 0.94, 74 strikeouts and 64 innings pitched. Did start 7 games. That was more likely as an opener for the Tampa Bay Rays. Won 6 games, only lost 1. But you look at these percentile rankings and where he stacks up. Hard hit percentage in the 96th percentile. Expected ERA, 98th percentile. Expected WOBA, 98th percentile. Barrel percentage, 99th percentile. Whiff percentage, 83rd percentile. Walk percentage, 95th percentile. Expected slugging, 96th percentile. You get it. The guy was awesome in pretty much every metric you can look at. The only blue bubble on his page is fastball velocity in the 4th percentile. But who needs velocity when your fastball spin is in the 90th percentile? This guy has become a movement specialist. And it is remarkable to see him rely on his slider, his cutter, and just dominate hitters. It's crazy because I remember what Colin McHugh looked like as a Met in 2013, 2012. Wasn't pretty. If you go back then, when Matt Harvey is at the height of his powers, and you say, who's going to have a better career, Colin McHugh or Matt Harvey? Who would you have said? If anyone is saying Colin McHugh, you are bold-faced lying. And here's the crazy thing. Let's look at their career stats compared to each other. Who has more wins in their career? Colin McHugh or Matt Harvey? Again, I'm not big on record, but sometimes it's just interesting to point out. McHugh, a 64-44 career record. Matt Harvey, a 50-66 career record. So Colin McHugh is 20 games over 500. Matt Harvey, 16 games under 500. ERA for their careers. Matt Harvey, 4.42. Colin McHugh, 3.77. WHIP, Matt Harvey, 1.29. McHugh, 1.23. Strikeout percentage. Colin McHugh has become a better strikeout pitcher than Matt Harvey, or strikeout per 9, that's strikeout percentage. Strikeout per 9 for McHugh, 8.8 for Harvey, 8.1. Walk per 9, 2.6 for Harvey, 2.5 for McHugh. The one metric where Matt Harvey is still better than Colin McHugh is wins above replacement according to Fangraphs. F4 at 16 compared to McHugh at 13.9. But he has over 100 more innings pitched than McHugh, and most of that came in those early stages of his Mets career when Matt Harvey was still amazing. And recently, obviously, his career has gone in the opposite direction, where Colin McHugh, year over year, just keeps getting better and plugging away. He had great years in Houston. And then, of course, in Tampa, I mean, a place that just maximizes pitchers. They see someone like Colin McHugh, they can key in on his movement, teach him some things, teach him how to mix up his pitch arsenal in a better way. And he's one of the best relievers in baseball. It's going to be really interesting to see what type of a contract Colin McHugh could command this offseason. But if we're really talking about improving the 2022 team, and we're not just, having fun on a random Wednesday in the middle of a lockout or dreaming about a Matt Harvey on a minor league deal, Colin McHugh's the former Met you want right now. Colin McHugh would actually be a key cog in the Mets bullpen if they went out and signed him. One of the better free agent relievers on the market right now. So when we're looking at the 2022 season, bring them both back, right? Why not? Give Colin McHugh the major league deal. I'm not sure exactly how much he's going to require. You look at what Aaron Luke just got for a season with the spectacular ERA, and you wonder what Colin McHugh is going to get, right? I mean, are people going to respect him, even though he's a right-handed pitcher? But you see the numbers, you see how dominant he was. I would think he should get a pretty good contract. So that will be interesting to see where that number falls in. I got to imagine he's going to get at least $6 million, at least, I would think. I mean, if Aaron Luke got, 17.5, is that what it was? Aaron Luke's contract. By the way, I should mention on yesterday's show, someone pointed out I said that Vic Black was traded for Ike Davis, and I was incorrect on that. Got my trades mixed up. Vic Black came over in the Marlon Byrd John Buck trade. Okay, so it was 2 years, 17 million for Aaron Luke. But anyway, Vic Black was not in the Ike Davis trade. The Ike Davis trade, it was Zach Thornton, and I got to get this right. Oh yeah, Blake Taylor, who would get traded to the Astros a couple years later, not for J.D. Davis, but for Jake Marisnick. Not a good trade by the Mets. That's a left-handed reliever who could still be part of the Mets bullpen right now. He's put up some good numbers over there. But getting back to Colin McHugh, if Aaron Luke gets 2 years, 17, maybe Colin McHugh gets, 1 year, 7, 1 year, 8, something like that. He's certainly pitched very well this past season. He's going to have a market if he wants to come back and continue to pitch. And the Mets should certainly be interested because, like I've said, one of the best relievers in baseball this past season. But that's going to be all for today's edition of Locked On Mets. We had fun, all right? It's a Wednesday in the middle of a lockout. There's never a time, or if there's ever a time, to talk about a Matt Harvey reunion. It's now. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling. Get your daily picks, blowout specials, wrong team favorite picks, and Lee Sterling's lock of the day by following Locked On Bets wherever you get podcasts.